Every club. Every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.
Hello everyone and welcome back to the Daily Manchester United. Happy Monday. It's a draw. We're a point higher than we were from the last match. Yes, we're here after the 2-2 draw against Everton, where it took 70 minutes for the players to turn up. But when they did turn up, boy, did we get a match. My name's Kieran, and I'm joined by the fabulous Tom Cairns today. Tom, we're here to just react to the game, give our raw reaction to it, and it sounds like there's going to be a lot to talk about today.
Well, yes, there is a lot to talk about, and perhaps we came away with more than we ever would desire. So yes, I think overall it wasn't a good performance, but we came away with more than what we bargained for. But we got very, very lucky at the end. I thought we got away with one there. I didn't think it was a penalty from my side, but I still don't think it wasn't enough of a clear-cut, obvious error from what the referee had given to begin with.
Yeah, and we'll have a full discussion about that later on. We'll start at the very start. Luckily, as most games are with Manchester United, it really was a game of two halves. The first half, Everton were all over us. And let's face it, that first goal, utter shambles, is what I would call that goal. How many times does somebody have an opportunity to clear the ball away and either it's scuffed or it's scraped or, someone completely misses it. The header just goes about 3 yards up in the air. It was a mess, an absolute mess.
Oh, it was a mess. It feels like a repeat of the Everton-Liverpool game of last season for the first Everton goal, if you remember, where I think Liverpool had about 4 chances to clear the ball and they never got it away. That's what it felt like for the first goal against us on Saturday. So we had like 4 opportunities to clear it. Dello had a mare in trying to clear it. I think Dorgo tried to clear it as well. But I think Matsurawi and I think someone else may have tried to clear it as well. So it was just awful. I think it might have been Maguire who tried to head it away as well. But for some reason, I think Beto got on the end of it and put it away easily. And there was just no chance for Onana to save that. But for the second goal, what was Maguire doing to begin with? And leaving, I think was it Harrison who was left unmarked, and then Decore got the rebound after the initial parry away from Onana. So that first half performance for Manchester United was absolutely inept. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe the amount of energy that Everton had, which you could have predicted going into the game. I think it's a shame from their point of view that energy wasn't carried over into the second half, because had they got an early goal in the second half, Everton, it would have been curtains.
No, yeah, absolutely. I think we were very lucky to only be 2-0 there, but I think Onana doesn't help himself in that second goal. He's been called into question, and it's happened a couple of times this season where Onana has parried the ball back into the path of another striker or back into the path of the 6-yard or 12-yard box. That is not going to do it. If you parry it, at least parry out for a corner or parry it out so it goes out for a throw in, anything. But instead, he parries it back where it came from or back out in front of him, which, when we've got strikers that we're coming up against that react so quickly, much quicker than any of our defence, it just calls into question. It's one of those, again, where our defence is just sort of looking over their shoulders and wondering how Beto's found himself in this acre. Well, it's not quite an acre of space, but it might as well have been to be able to finish the first goal, get that second goal off. And it's just, it's a little bit frustrating. So it's Decore who gets that second goal. When does Decore score? Seems unfair, but it is what it is. It is what it is.
Yeah, it feels like players don't score in other games, but yet they score against us.
It's a free goal, isn't it, Tom?
Yeah, it feels like the days of Granit Xhaka when he was at Arsenal. It's like any other club he wouldn't score against, he would score against us. So, yeah.
Arsenal catching strays there. That's
yeah,
that'll go down well.
Yeah. Well, I stand by what I say. But that first half performance, above all, was just one of the worst I've seen for United. I'm surprised they didn't end up 3-0 down, in all honesty. But bearing in mind, overall throughout the match, not just in the first half, there weren't really that many shots when you think of it.
Yeah, I'm trying to think, actually, because I don't really think Pickford had a lot to do in the Everton goal. I mean, I'm just having a look at some stats here. It's 18 shots across both teams, divided equally. So 9 shots apiece. And yeah, it was just... It was one of those. But Everton did get bodies in the way. That was the main thing. They got bodies in the way. They got... whenever there was a chance for Pickford to make a save, well, he had 3 shots on target to deal with and 2 of them went in. We'll talk about the goals we scored in the second half later on, but the first half, there was that shot of Ruben Amorim on the sideline. I don't know if you saw the cut, Tom. It was about 40 minutes in, and he has a face like thunder. And you can hardly blame him, because what was there? What apart from Dorgu giving some real positive energy down that left-hand side and being able to get some crosses in, there wasn't really a lot to shout about in that first half.
No, I mean, Dorgu was by far our best player in the first half, really. The link-up play between him and Fernandes was fantastic to see. It's just a shame that Dorgu's crosses weren't exactly the same to be talked about. So he definitely needs to work on the quality of his crossing if we're going to see more of that from him. And hopefully someone like Højlund or Xerxes will get on the end of those. So I think that will be something for the training ground. I mean, they've only got a few days before the home match against Ipswich, really. So that might be an opportunity, really, for Dorgu to put that right. But yeah,
yes.
But he had a better performance on Saturday, did Dorgu, than he did in the previous games, and I'm really happy to see that.
Yeah, no, I agree. He definitely works down the left-hand side. And, without Garnaccio starting, of course, he does come on in the second half again. That's for later. But when Dorgu was down there on that left-hand side, he wanted that ball. And you could see the likes of Fernandes and Ugarte giving him the ball and giving him that freedom down the left-hand side to do what he wanted to do, to run forward, to ask questions of his opposite number. And he was asking those questions. And there were some decent crosses into the box. Unfortunately, he's crossed them into Højlund, who is a little bit devoid of confidence. He doesn't have a lot of service anyway. I think he was surprised that he was actually getting crosses into the box into the first place. And I think that is something that United have lacked. It's a case of actually getting the ball into the box. Sometimes we're sort of afraid to get into that box for whatever reason. And I think that, that attitude where everyone's scared to make that final pass and to lose the ball just shows how fragile we are, that we know how vulnerable we are on the counter. And it's just, that shows how we're going forward. We're a bit hesitant to do anything.
Yeah, well, it feels like we struggled to put together a string of passes to begin with anyway. So, whereas with Everton, they're just different class. They were different class in the first half in putting together a string of passes and getting the ball back whenever they lost it, which is very typical of Everton from the first spell of David Moyes when he was there. Players like Kevin Morales, Leighton Baines, Seamus Coleman, all those types of players would be very, very good at getting the ball back as soon as they lost it. That's what they did on Saturday.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely fair enough. Beto scores another goal. I was here, I think it was on the commentary, they said that Beto had then scored 5 goals in his last 4 games, and then said, but in his previous 44, he'd scored 5. It's unbelievable. That man is in such rich vein of form, and it's no wonder Everton are starting to really get their way up the table. But yeah, that was pretty much the first half. It was all Everton, and as you said, they were absolute pressing machines. The likes of Gay, Doucouré, Garner were all closing down, especially Idrissa Gana Gay. He was absolutely alert to every situation. He was making it so difficult to actually pass through the middle of the park. Doucouré as well. I always know how good of a holding midfielder. When Doucouré has a good game, he is unshakable in that midfield. And it had to take something in that second half, Tom, which we will discuss. But man, it was a bit deflating going into half time.
Oh, it was. And that rinsing from Ruben Amorim was exactly what the United players needed. And I don't think we've seen enough of that from Amorim so far, but it proved to be inspiring going into the second half. Even though it did take time, United got their, I won't obviously use any colourful language, but they managed to get their act together and actually pull out all the stops. But I think from the moment the first goal from Fernandes went in, it really galvanised them. And they went and quickly got the second one on soon after.
Well, United side were galvanised. We'll be galvanised when we come back after this short break to talk more about the second half.
Every club, every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.
Your body is unique. And Global Sports Podcast Network has partnered with Bioniq, the world's most personalised supplements. Bioniq provide 100% tailor-made supplements designed to deliver precisely what your body needs at exactly the right levels to optimize your health. No guessing. So click the link in the show notes. Use the code GSPN2025 for 40% off your first month's subscription. Bioniq. Don't settle for off-the-shelf solutions made for just anybody. Get what's right for you right now.
Every club, every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.
Well, whatever rocket was ignited by Amorim after that halftime team talk, it was a slightly different looking team. It was the same group of players, but for some reason they started passing the ball around. And I don't know whether it was a case of United gained a little bit more confidence or were a bit inspired, and perhaps Everton was starting to tire. Maybe a little bit of both, but the game changes, not at the first Bruno Fernandes attempt at a free kick. The handball's given from a free kick that's about 35 yards out, or maybe close to 30 yards out. Then we get a free kick from about 25, 24 yards out. And I almost couldn't believe the goal he'd actually scored. I was like, Bruno Fernandes has scored from a free kick. We don't score from free kicks. What is this wizardry going on here? I had to double take.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember the last time Bruno had scored from a free kick. But I think it came down to where Pickford's positioning was. Because the problem is, when you see a goalkeeper make one move to the right with his right foot, you lose momentum at that point anyway, and the ball was well and truly going past him, because he would have thought that the ball was going into his right-hand side and not his left. Well, I don't think the wall even moved. I don't know if you saw it, or maybe the wall did move, or part of the wall did move, but the ball was well away from it, and it was to Pickford's left-hand side. And so...
It's not a case it didn't move. It was stationary. It was where Pickford had wanted it, but Fernandes had curled it round the wall. And it was just this gaping hole on Bruno's right that he could try and slot the ball into. And it's almost as if Pickford was just not expecting it. You know, when you set up a wall, you're expecting the free kick taker to go over the wall, and that didn't happen. And as you said, with Pickford expecting the ball to go one way, because his momentum shifted, he can't do anything at that point. He's left absolutely stranded, and a goal to get us back into the game. And then it's a nice free kick, though, I have to admit. You see it from the reverse angle. It's a very, very nice free kick from Fernandes, placing it beautifully. And then scoring his first goal for Manchester United, step forward Manuel Ugarte. Absolute, I won't call it a thunderbolt, but it was a shot from distance, from sort of a rebound. And again, I had to double take. Ugarte scored that? Well, somehow it's 2-2 in the space of 8 minutes.
It's almost like the days of Nemanja Matic all over again with that quality of strike, although except the fact that Matic's long-range shot against Crystal Palace it was. In fact, it was his first goal for United as well, Nemanja Matic. That's what it maybe felt like a little bit, even though it was only for an equaliser, not for a last-minute winner. It would have been incredible if it was a last-minute winner, but no, it was a quality strike from Ugarte. The way he controlled it and then volleyed it was sensational. Which not a lot of defensive midfielders would be able to do. Not only getting the shot away, but to keep it on target, keeping it low, was something quite special there for Ugarte. So very, very happy for him. We didn't even think before the match had started that he'd be within the matchday squad, because he was out in the last game against Spurs. And from what me and Niall were talking about on our show in the week, we didn't think that Ugarte would be involved at all. We thought he was going to be out for some time, but thankfully, he was in the starting lineup, and he came up with the goods.
Yeah, it was the same for us when we sort of put together a sort of combined 11, or not combined 11, a predicted 11, where we had sort of thought, well, if these injuries are for 3-4 weeks, we're down to the bare bones for a little bit. But we saw back on the bench the likes of Christian Eriksen, Garnaccio was back on the bench there as well, Chido Obi Martin. I think we have to talk about the substitutes as well, because Garnaccio came on 62nd minute on for Casemiro, and chasing the game at that point when we're 2-0 down. And I think Garnaccio completely changed it. He just gave us a completely new dynamic, and he got a couple of shots away. But again, Garnaccio has got to... I thought he got himself into good positions, but when you get yourself into those positions, at least take the shot on. He had a couple blocked, but there were a couple more opportunities here. I think he could just pull the trigger a little bit earlier and get the shot away. But again, he had his head down for quite a lot of it, and he wanted to be the one that got the goal or got a goal. And I can understand, as he's a youngster, you want your name in the back pages, but you've got to realise at that point when you're on the pitch, 2-0 down, 2-1 down, where it's 2-2, you've got to think bigger picture. at that point. But I can't fault a man for trying, because he did change the game for us.
He did, and he seems to inspire us more when he's coming off the bench as opposed to starting. When he started against Spurs, he didn't put his chances away, and whenever he tried to put the chances away, he ended up missing pretty much a sitter, really, especially in the first half against Spurs, where he had a decent angle to get the shot away, or at least get it on target, and it just went into Rose's head. Whereas in the Everton one, as he came on as a sub, he was a totally different player. And so I think that's something that Amorim will need to consider going forward. Is Garnaccio a better spark coming off the bench as opposed to starting?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, as you say, it's a difficult question. I'll let you finish there, Tom. I've rudely interrupted.
It's okay. I was just saying, because we have two attacking midfielders now instead of the two wingers, because we all know Garnaccio tends to play on that wing anyway. Because it was it was Højlund in the 9, Xerxes and Fernandez, I think it was, because we had Ugarte and Casemiro to begin with in CDM. Garnaccio, as we know, can play in an attacking midfield role anyway. And he was just a different kettle of fish, really, compared to what he was against Spurs. And I'm really glad to see him come up with the goods, really. We just need to see that more of him whenever he's starting, and I don't feel we're getting that yet.
And also, because of that change to bring Garnaccio on, it dropped Bruno deeper, which again is something that Amorim wants. You can see he wants to play Bruno deeper. And I think right now, Fernandes is playing better football deeper in the role. For some reason, for someone who's been so good at attacking and getting us our goals, he was our joint top goal scorer last season, and he's always there for the goal here and there to save our bacon if we need it. He was playing better football in that game from the deeper role. And I feel like in that midfield where it was congested and you had the likes of Doucouré and Gay chasing down every blade of grass, you needed someone with that calm and composure to pick out a pass. And by dropping Bruno deeper, I felt like we did have a couple more options going forward there. But then we have to talk about the very last action of the game, pretty much the very last action of the game. Ref points to the spot. I thought clear as day it's a penalty, and then VAR comes in and says, have another look at that, and it's overturned. I'm just, again, it was one of those where a third double take of the match for me, rounded off my hat-trick. How's that not been given?
Yeah, well, looking back on the replays, I didn't think it was a foul. I didn't think it was enough contact for it to be a penalty. But at the same time, I don't think it would have been enough to be given as a clear-cut, obvious error. And this is the problem now, is people always have different definitions as to how much contact there should be in order for a penalty to be warranted. As we know in the modern day, just because there's contact involved does not mean a penalty should be given. There was 2 tugs on Ashley Young's shirt, one from De Ligt and the second one from Maguire. But I think the second tug came as Young was going to ground anyway. And I think the way Young went to ground, as we often saw him do at United, which sounds a bit hypocritical of us to say.
Look over that.
Yeah. I didn't think it was enough to be warranted a penalty, because I felt he went down too unnaturally for me. And I think that's what made Andy Madley's mind up by going to the VAR screen and saying, do you know what? I don't think there's enough contact in that. I'm overturning it.
I just think, though, if you've got hold of someone's shirt, you're asking for trouble. You are so asking for trouble, because you've seen those given. And in some cases, you've seen VAR not overturn it. And I was thinking that perhaps VAR was not going to overturn it and not intervene because of a lack of evidence. And this is where, even though the decision benefited us, I think for the good of football, there needs to be a timer on how long, either stop the clock to allow us to have as long as we need, or it's 30 seconds. If in 30 seconds you can't prove that there is substantial evidence to overturn the decision, then it's got to go. Because otherwise, we spent, was it 3 minutes, 2.5 minutes, 3 minutes coming to a decision? That was the same for the Everton's first goal. It came to 3 minutes. And, you know, you're just sort of thinking this game really is slowed down quite a bit. I mean, the recommendation for the penalty was for Madley to look at the screen, a recommendation to review it. So I guess you could see it from that point of view. But yeah, it's got to be quicker. And if it takes you longer than 30 seconds or a minute to actually get to that decision, surely it's not clear and obvious. That was always my thinking of that statement in the rules.
Yeah, well, it's easy enough to say 30 seconds, but sometimes maybe a little bit longer. But I do agree that the decisions need to be quicker than what they are, because otherwise we're going to end up having stoppage time of what we had in the World Cup, where I think for England's game against Iran, I think we had something ridiculous like 14 minutes of stoppage time because of an injury that was there. But yeah, I think there's something that needs to be resolved on this one. I think that we were meant to implement this new semi-automated offside thing as well, alongside, I think, the penalty decisions anyway. But the penalty decision has to be handled by a human being anyway, as opposed to just relying on technology to do that. Because technology, as we all know, is not always accurate.
Yes. Goal line technology is pretty accurate, as long as Villa Park turn theirs on. Eh?
And the John Smith Stadium, when Huddersfield against Blackpool, I think it was, and I think Huddersfield were robbed of a goal that should have been given.
Yes, it always works when it turns on, eh? Anyway, we've got to turn on the show as well, because we've got to rate the players after this short break. So join us after this.
Every club, every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.
Here at the Global Sports Podcast Network, we spent a lot of time selecting our delivery platform. Zencastr came out the clear winner. With 4K video recording from your phone and AI editing, it's super easy to start a podcast that sounds great and is delivered efficiently. If you're ready to tell your story, check out the link in the show description to learn more about Zencastr.
Every club, every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.
Okay, let's start off with Andre Onana in our player ratings. Out of 10, avoid decimals if you can, make it even trickier. Andre Onana, I'm going to give a 4. I think he made a couple of good saves, but in both those goals, he needed to have a bigger hand in controlling the situation. That first goal, he should be jumping up and trying to at least take control of the situation. It showed a lack of command of the area. It showed a lack of communication in general. But you need someone who can actually see forward to say, right, I've got to go for this. And the second one, he's got to be doing better than parrying it, straight in front of him or straight up in the air. He's got to get that away or catch it, whatever. So it's a 4 from me. It sounds harsh, but I'm sticking with it.
I'm going to go with you on that as well, Kieran. I thought Nana had a game to forget overall, and I don't think he, like you say, he didn't parry the shots well away as well as he needs to have done. I think something on the training ground, I think that Amrin needs to address to him, that he needs to try and work on that a little bit more. But, considering the 2 goals involved in it, and what you got to remember is that penalty one as well, that I think, I didn't think it was a penalty to begin with, but, if it was given, we have to remember what contributed to that penalty. It was that parry of the save from Onana that Ashley Young tried to get on the end of. So that's another reason why Onana had a game to forget. But I'm going to go with a 4 as well for him.
Okay. So it's all... We're all agreeing with each other at the moment. We get to the back line then. Mazraoui, who was subbed off in the 70th minute. I thought it was a rare quiet game from Mazraoui. He had a quiet one and not a lot happened. And he seemed to get out-muscled quite a bit. I don't know if he picked up a knock, because a couple of times in that game he went to ground and had to be assessed by the medics and whatnot. Maybe that was one of the reasons why he was subbed off. But it was a quiet game for him. Struggle whether a 4 or a 5. Because I'm going to have to be quite harsh here, because it was a rare bad game for him. I'm going to say it was a rare, quiet and not so great game for him.
Well, it was an anomalous one for him, because I don't think he really contributed. He didn't really contribute a lot for me, did Mazraoui. I mean, he didn't clear the corner away as well, which led to the first goal. And yeah, he got out-muscled a lot by the likes of Harrison and Decore and Beto in the first half especially. So he's certainly not getting more than a 5. Would I say he had a better game than Onana did? I know you said no decimals involved in this, but
he's already breaking the rule.
Is it this unwritten rule where we're not allowed to have decimals in the ratings?
No, I've just come down with an iron fist. Use a decimal if you want. I'll slightly judge.
Well, I do honestly think he had a better game than Onana, so I'm going to go 4.5.
4.5. Yeah. Okay. Because I'm going to stick by no decimals, I'm going to go with 5. But it's only because he did, I think Andre didn't have a great game and he has been struggling recently. And for Mazraoui, he may have been carrying a knock. But I don't know what it was, but yeah, it was a quiet one for him. Matthias de Ligt, again, quiet. I didn't think he showed his best today.
He didn't show his best, but I thought he had a better game of it than he did against Tottenham. There was a time in the second half where he passed it back to Onana, which went out for a corner, which wasn't particularly good. But there were moments where I thought he stood his ground really, really well. I will say that he gets a 5 from me for his performance.
I think that's fair. Yeah, 5 is fair, I think. Maguire, for someone who's so dominant in the air, I struggled with that one. He tried to claim a penalty when no one else thought it was. Instantly, it's a bit like, come on, that's a bit desperate, Harry, come on. Again, quiet one for him. As someone as commanding as him as well, not to be able to get the ball away, for someone who's so good in the air, I think another 5 for me.
I'm going to go with a 4 on this one, Kieran. I thought Maguire, for once this season, he just struggled to cope with Harrison, Decore and Beto. Those in particular were always going to be throwing everything at him. And he was out of position for the second goal when he was focusing more on where the ball was and not envisaging where Harrison was going to be ending up in the penalty area. So he just basically left the middle part of that back three completely open. And he just didn't defend his lines as well as he needed to have done. So Maguire, for me, is getting a 4 out of 10.
Okay. I said 5, so I'll stick with 5 for our number 5. Right, midfielders then, and we are counting sort of the wing backs, if you like, in this one. Patrick Dorgu, I think, honestly, he was voted as man of the... Bruno Fernandes was voted as man of the match, but to be honest with you, Patrick Dorgu was great, I thought. He's getting a 7 from me. He was very positive down that left-hand side. Possibly one of the only players who actually put in a good shift in the first 45.
I couldn't agree more. He was outstanding for United in that first half. He looked comfortable on that left-hand side. I wasn't sure whether he would be able to, considering the likes of the Everton back 5 as they had, because like what we had, I think they had a back 5 as well with 3 centre-halves and 2 wing-backs. You had O'Brien on the right-hand side, I think, and on the left-hand side, I'm trying to remember who was left wing-back for Everton.
Would have been Mikolenko.
It may well have been, yes. Yeah, it was Mikolenko who was playing on that left-hand side. But it seemed to be that that Dorgu had coped really well, and the link-up play between him and Fernandes in that first half especially was fantastic to see. And I'm going to go with a 7 as well, because I thought Dorgu was by far our best player in the match.
Yeah, I agree. I think he was very positive, and I look forward to seeing even more of that from the youngster. Diogo Dalot, on the other hand, again, another quiet one for him. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's a lack of confidence or what have you, but I think he's getting a 5 from me. He did struggle in this game, and I think multiple times he was caught, and a lot of the plays came down the left-hand side wing. So again, it's something you need Dalot to sort of lock down on. And if he is an attacking fullback, he at least needs to, provide the crosses. I just don't think he was at his best.
He really struggled, and he didn't look comfortable either, did Dalot. And I think in a game of its magnitude at Goodison Park, it's not hostile, but it's a very, very difficult ground to go and get a result at, even though Everton, over the course of the season, haven't been fantastic. It's their run of form recently that's what's made them so formidable right now. Dalot gets a 4 out of 10.
Yeah, okay. I'm not going to disagree with that. Ugarte, who I think, as part of that holding midfield, was not great in that first half. I think his performance is recovered because his goal was the equaliser. For that reason, I'm giving him a 6.
I'm going to go with that as well. Ugarte, I think, like you say, struggled to cope with the set pieces, but made up for it in the second half and galvanised that Manchester United team as soon as they got the equaliser. And they tried to go and get a winner after that as well. And I think he played a key role in that. So a 6 out of 10 is what he gets from me.
On the other hand, though, Casemiro, again, someone who technically is quite good. But in a game like this where we needed energy, he was going to struggle in this. A 5 from me.
I'm toying between a 5 and a 5.5, but if you're insisting on no decimals, I'm going to go 5.
It's just a made-up rule, but I love it. I love how we're trying to stick to it. Bruno Fernandes then, Captain Fernandes. I think I think he was creative in that first half, but nowhere near as good as we know he can be. He came alive in that second half, a great free kick. Am I going to put him as high as Dorgu?
I think you've got to really because
I have, yeah.
Yeah.
7 from me then.
7 out of 10 for Fernandes from me as well. I thought I think he led the team for once, did Bruno, and just gave them a little bit more energy than they did in the first half. Because going back to what we said about Dorgu, the link-up play between him and Dorgu, and maybe Casemiro played a part in that as well with the passing between himself and Dorgu. But Fernandes, for me, was one of the bright sparks for United. And so he gets a 7 out of 10 for me. Fantastic performance from Bruno overall.
Xerxes then, who I've always said, we should try him in a little bit of a deeper role. Had some moments, but not enough for me to sort of say, wow, that was a great performance. I think it's a 5 from me for Xerxes.
I'm going to disagree with you. I'm going to say 4 or 4.5. I'm going to say 4.5 because I know I've only had one decimal rating for. I can't remember who it was that I put a decimal for, but for me, Xerxes really struggled again. I just don't think he provided anything or offered anything in the role that he was given. If he was playing on the right hand side of the attacking midfield compared to who was it that was playing on the left attacking midfield? Was it Bruno who was playing there?
Bruno to start with, yeah.
I honestly think Xerxes didn't provide anything or offer anything. So, do you know what? I'm going to drop it down to a 4 because I think in that role, you need to offer and service the likes of Højlund a little bit more, and I don't think Xerxes did that.
I feel generous now, but I'm sticking with it. You know what? Argue about it in the comments. Højlund then. I don't really think I need to say more, do I?
No, well, you could argue, do you think it's the fact that he hasn't been given the service of which he needs, or is it the fact that he just hasn't got the energy right now and he hasn't got the confidence within himself right now, or hasn't got the motivation within himself right now? It's a 4 out of 10. He was dreadful all game before he got subbed off for Chido Obi. So,
yeah.
Højlund, 4 out of 10, provided nothing.
Yeah, I feel harsh giving him a 4 out of 10 if I gave Joshua a 5. I've set myself up here. I think as an main attacking outlet, I think it has to be a 4, I'm afraid. I like Rasmus Højlund and I'll always be biased towards him, but I can't disguise the fact that he is struggling and we need to acknowledge that. Quickly then for our substitutes, made 3 of them. Garnaccio coming on the 62nd minute. I'll give him a 6. He changed the game for us. I think would have been higher if he capped off a goal or got an assist in there, but 6 out of 10 from me in that short spell.
He provided a bit of energy, didn't he? And he got some of those who had been struggling throughout the game. They stepped it up a little bit thanks to him. So 6 out of 10 is what I'll go for as well.
Chido Obi Martin, I thought, again, this is going to sound harsh. I'm going to give him a 5, but he's showing some promise there. And I tell you what, if he gets that turn right, what was it, 75th, 76th minute roughly, he gets the turn on there, but he miscontrols it and it bobbles straight to Pickford. Give him a couple more games, a couple more senior minutes, he's able to get that turn and try and get shot away. There's promising signs there from Chido Obi Martin, but I'm giving him a 5 today.
Yeah, I was happy that he got the minutes of which he should have got against Spurs the weekend before. So 5 out of 10 is what my default rating would always be. So he gets that from me. But hopefully in the game against Ipswich, I can see him maybe starting, I think Højlund could do with dropping to the bench and just watching, see how Chido Obi does.
And then we made that substitution for Lenny Yoro coming on for Mazraoui. What did you make of it?
It looked ominous, to be honest with you, did Yoro, from my end. I don't know if you saw anything which caught your eye about Yoro from when he came on.
I have to say, no, I think it was all attacking. So I think it was anonymous, but it's not essentially the wrong reasons because we were all attacked. There were a couple of attacks from Everton towards the end of the game that we dealt with. I think I'm giving him a 5. I think he was anonymous, but not for the wrong reasons, if that makes any sense.
I'll go with that as well, Kieran. Yoro gets a 5 out of 10 from me.
So there you go. How right or wrong did we get our ratings? Only you can decide because you're right. There you go. Well, thank you, Tom, for joining me. It's been nice. We got a point. I didn't expect that 45 minutes into the game.
Yeah. Well, hopefully we can put on a better show, which we should do against Ipswich, who have been struggling so much, especially I think away from home. They've not been great, and they got absolutely annihilated by Tottenham. at the weekend. They were just second best overall. So we should take advantage of that and put on a much more convincing performance. If we do that, it may put us in the right frame of mind for our cup games against Fulham and Real Sociedad.
Big couple of weeks coming up, big few games coming up that we need some good performances in. And well, as Tom said, next match is up against Ipswich at Old Trafford. It's 7:30 on Wednesday, the 26th of February on TNT Sports 4. How the mighty have fallen. Anyway, thank you so much for listening to today's podcast. Hope you have a great rest of your Monday. You can follow us on all the social medias. It's GSPN Man United. We're on Twitter, on X, we're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, and we're on TikTok as well. We're also on YouTube, where you can watch all of our episodes. You can see our lovely faces. You can find us at Global Sports Podcast Network Ltd on YouTube. Find the Daily Manchester United playlist and listen and watch to your heart's content. From us here, from myself and Tom, it's been a pleasure to at least unpack a draw, and hopefully we get a couple more points against Ipswich. Let's all hold our breath. But in the meantime, enjoy the rest of your Monday, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Every club, every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.